Now, let me ask you a few things. Who are you really? Are you the voice in your head or the one who listens to it? Are you your fears, your instincts, your ambitions, or the awareness behind them? And what if the purpose of all this, your struggles, your desires, your leadership, is not to build a perfect self, but to dissolve the illusion of one? Stay with me until the end of this episode, because today we are going to make a beautiful mess. We are going to take the greatest psychological minds of all times, Freud, Jung, Lacan, Alan Watts, and throw them into the same philosophical blender. Many of them didn't agree with each other. Some were even expelled from Freud's inner circle. Jung, Adler, and others who dared to expand the theory beyond Freud's walls. But I've always believed that truth is rarely found in consensus. It's found in integration. So today, we will build a bridge between their ideas, a framework that makes sense not just in my head, but in my soul, and I hope in yours as well. And by the end, I'll share the usual H2H experiment of the week, a reflective exercise to help you integrate these ideas into your own leadership. Not to lead from ego, but from the self. You know, Freud imagined the mind as a layered system: the id, the ego, and the superego, a constant inner negotiation between instinct, reality, and morality. Then came Lacan, who reframed this structure through language and relationships: the other, the significant other, and the big other, the symbolic system that defines us. And Jung looked deeper, beneath language, beneath instinct, and found something more ancient: the collective unconscious. A psychic ocean of symbols, archetypes, and memories shared across all humanity. Alan Watts later brought the Eastern flavor to it: the idea that the self and the universe are not separate things, that the ego is a wave that has forgotten it belongs to the ocean. And if you put all these views together, something extraordinary emerges. The psyche is not just an internal battlefield, it's a cosmic structure, a map of how consciousness experiences itself through form. Now, let's talk a little bit about the id. Freud described the id as pure instinct, the engine of desire, hunger, libido. But I like to think of it as something older, the memory of existence itself. The id carries not just biological impulses, but energetic inheritance. It's where your primal drive to survive meets the cosmic drive to evolve. It's the echo of every ancestor who ever lived, loved, fought, and survived, living inside yourselves. Freud thought libido, the sexual energy, was the primary motivator of the human being. And yes, he was partially right. But I think he was describing something even larger without even realizing it. That same energy that drives reproduction and the need to continue with the species is also the life force itself, the universal current that animates creation. What Freud called libido, mystics have called prana, chi, or vital energy. Richard Dawkins gave it a biological update in The Selfish Gene, saying that our genes want to survive and replicate. And yes, he's right too, but maybe genes aren't selfish at all. Maybe they're just instruments of consciousness, preserving the vessel so the universe mind can keep evolving through us. So yes, the id is survival, but survival in its purest form is sacred. Because every instinct to live, to grow, to connect is the universe's way of expanding its own awareness. Now moving to the next layer, the ego. Freud said that the ego mediates between desire and reality, but Jung shattered that illusion. The ego, he said, is not the master, it's the mask. The ego is the story you tell yourself about who you are. The name on your business cards, the tone in your emails, the narrative you defend at all costs. But the truth is, the ego is fragile because it knows it's temporary and it knows that it breaks easily. That's why the ego spends so much energy proving, protecting, posturing. It cannot bear to be wrong because being wrong threatens its existence. But growth begins when the ego dies, not in despair, but in awakening. For us to be able to grow, we need to challenge our egos because our egos keep telling ourselves the story that we are already there. Jung called this process individuation, the integration of the shadow, the parts of yourself you repress, deny, or fear. It's not about killing the ego violently. It's about seeing through it. When you face your shadow, your envy, your fear, your need to control, your aggressiveness, you reclaim your wholeness. The ego must die for the self to be born. The self, with a capital S, is not the individual personality, it's the totality of your being. Conscious and unconscious, light and dark, human and divine, yin and yang, masculine and feminine. It's what remains when the mask falls away. In leadership, this is transformative because the moment your ego dissolves, leadership stops being performance. It becomes presence. You no longer need to prove, you lead to serve. You don't influence to win, you influence to awaken. When the ego dies, the self leads. And the self does not dominate, it harmonizes. Now, moving another layer up or down, depends on how you see it, the superego and the big other from Lacan. Freud's superego was society's voice in your head, the moral judge. Lacan reinterpreted it as the big other, the invisible web of language norms and expectations that shape who we think we're supposed to be. From the moment you're born, the big other gives you an identity. Your name, your nationality, your gender, your role. You don't choose these, they choose you. In leadership, the big other manifests as corporate culture, social image, hierarchy, expectations. We lead not as ourselves, but as the role that has been assigned to us. But awareness changes everything. When you start to see the big other, you can question it. You can ask, am I leading from the truth or from the story I was told to play? You stop obeying systems blindly and start rewriting them consciously. And that's what it means to become a conscious leader. One who doesn't destroy the system, but evolves it. Here's something that I really enjoy to think about. Consciousness as a collective journey. And this is where psychology meets mysticism. What if the mind is not inside you, but you are inside the mind? What if consciousness is not something we have, but something we are? Alan Watts said, you are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself. Our bodies are vehicles. Our egos are interfaces. Our emotions are instruments. But the self, the deep, observing consciousness, is the real driver. If our senses are limited, which we already know that they are because they're not able to capture so many different frequencies of sound and light, there may be infinite forms of existence vibrating at frequencies beyond our perceptions, parallel dimensions of awareness coexisting with ours. The goal of being human is not dominance, it's attunement. Each of us, through self-awareness, contributes to the expansion of collective consciousness. When one person wakes up, the whole field vibrates higher. That's evolution, not biological, but spiritual. And in my eyes, this is the next stage of human evolution, not a genetic evolution, but an evolution of the mind. Now, let's take all these learnings from our inner architecture to outer leadership. How can we change it, turn this into leadership? When you integrate Freud, Jung, Lacan, and Watts, you realize that leadership is not a psychological management. It's existential stewardship. You lead reality through your state of consciousness. When you understand your id, you honor instinct without being ever enslaved by it. When you transcend your ego, you lead from the self, not from the mask. When you see the big other, you use systems consciously rather than being used by them. That's what I call holistic leadership. Leadership that integrates shadow, mind, and spirit. When you operate from that space, you don't just manage people, you awaken them. You don't just drive performance, you expand consciousness. And here we go with the H2H experiment of the week. This time we're going to do a shadow integration practice. This week's experiment is a meditation in 3 layers, a process of meeting, integrating, and transcending. Step 1. Meet your shadow. Every night, reflect on the moment during the day when you felt triggered, defensive, or reactive. You know, a moment when you feel very sad or very angry at someone or at something. Just think about that. Reflect on that moment. And then you ask yourself, what part of me was I protecting? What fear was underneath? You really have to sit in that reflection and take the time to go deep. Step 2. Dialogue with the ego. Write a short note beginning with Dear Ego and let it speak, let it defend, rationalize, justify. Then write back as the self, the calm observer, and remind it that it doesn't need to control everything. Of course, that this is related to that what you have reflected on step 1. So you let the ego justify the behavior, and with the self, you argue with the ego. In step 3, expand the field. Sit in silence for a few minutes and imagine yourself dissolving into light, your body, your thoughts, your story. Feel yourself as awareness itself, limitless, connected, at peace. Just stay in the present. Just stay in the moment. This is not imagination, it's remembrance. When the ego softens, the self leads. And when the self leads, the universe expands through you. Now, let's wrap up this episode. Freud gave us the structure. Lacan gave us the mirror. Jung gave us the key. And Watts reminded us that we were never separate in the first place. The journey of leadership, like the journey of consciousness, is not about becoming someone. It's about remembering what you already are. You are not the role. You are not the mask. You are not even the mind. You are awareness wearing human form for a brief and magnificent moment in this existence. So the next time you lead, remember, you're not trying to change the world. You are the world. You are the universe, becoming aware of itself. Thank you so much for listening to the H2H experiment. I'm really happy to have you here. If you'd like to explore these ideas further or even other topics, visit me on LinkedIn, the ECXO, or YouTube, where I keep unraveling these threads between psychology, philosophy, and human leadership. And if you enjoy reading, apart from the articles, we also have our 2 books launched on Amazon about the HX revolution. Once again, thank you. Until next time, stay aware, stay kind, and stay connected to the self behind the self. Bye.